It appears Senator Manchin's all upset, but that's beside the point. He was upset already beforehand, when after he did not last Friday, week before Friday, put out the dog whistle. Then 2 days later, he stated he's in charge and he's going to control everything. All right, Joe, you do that. You do you. You keep screwing over your people, and you're blaming it on African Americans because your dog whistle was niggers are coming to get your money. Pardon the language. Or those folks, others are coming to get your money. That was a dog whistle. It still is the dog whistle. Cinema is so bought out. She's not even working. She's screwing over her own constituents. And if the Republic falls, it's going to be on both Joe Manchin and Kirsten Cinema. Period. Because they're holding up filibuster reform, voting rights, so that way the Democrats can actually win in the midterms, and then the economic agenda, so Democrats can actually win in the midterms. You By not doing these two things, Democrats have shot themselves in the foot. But before I get to that, because what was what this was about. Well, let me first finish Joe, and then I got to go off to the second piece. So the first piece is, once again, see, we're talking here. Look at this. They moved this pharmaceutical company overseas while it was making money, destroys the mental, the trade capital necessary to run that business. Send it overseas. His daughter gets $33 million. Joe Manchin's daughter gets $33 million. Then she wants to cut. That's why he wanted to say, "Oh, I want the capital gains down," instead of just going, "Okay, well, what I was saying is that you take the capital gains and say and turn it into long-term capital gains, which means you're pouring money back into the economy and then you're living off the cash flows." Now, most of the persons in Congress know how to make money. This isn't making money. This is pure corruption, greed, and destruction. And this is what Joe Manchin is destroying: his people, and then blaming it on brown people. That's the game, and that's why I'm upset. And it's supposed to be, you're not supposed to be upset. Dude, I'm no 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 no. I'm not African American, I'm Jamaican American. And I'm not lower middle class. Well, actually middle class, but where I come from, you're not even you're such persons are so used to being abusive to others that when somebody says, "No, you're not gonna, I'm not going to accept your abuse," they think that something's wrong with them. Well, it's not that they think that something's wrong with them. Well, technically, if you look at the structure of the mind of externalization, but that's what they're doing. So, how does the Build Back Better plan help this particular county in West Virginia? How does the Build Back Better plan help people in Mesa, in Phoenix, in Tucson, especially Tucson, which is a school more working class for cinema? She's screwing over her constituents. There was something that said that she was labeled once as this flaky liberal, blah blah blah. This is good for business. These plans are good for businesses. Externalizes, see, Uber. You go back hundreds of years. You look at the way corporations acted since they were really turned into the powerhouse of the industrial and now the technological revolutions. So originally they were started as just something you put together, build a bridge, dissolve the bridge once the bridge is done. Right? Limited liability. So these corporations, these people who are running them, they don't care about. No, 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 no. Uh, realized, I was like, whoops, I didn't know they had that open. They don't care about, oops, there it is. They're people because they figure if you keep them poor, keep them broke, they and then ship all those jobs overseas, there's nothing left. We're destroying, these people are destroying this country. You know, that whole poison pill that they put in, if they thought the 3.5 was going through, they were going to run a poison pill, which is the, and the thing is it was done after committee. They were going to do it anyways. Okay, that was their goal, and it looks like a Romney plan because it was basically vulture capitalism. Remember, in 2009, 400 top families dumped their money into a transferred it to a Roth IRA. The Fed pumped money into the account into the economy, falsely inflating the assets of the stock market. They've ridden that asset bubble all the way up. Now they're going to say now the Fed's going to start tapering. You're going to have now in most people who do trading, there usually what's called a retracement. So we're looking at a 10, 20, or 50% retracement back to 2009. Then puts them in a cash position. Then take that cash position in their IRA. Well, they need a new position to place it in the IRA. So that what they do, they put the poison pill in. So 2 years later, right before elections in 2022, they tank the prices on commercial real estate, but only on partial parts. So so even though the price is going down, the rents are still the same. They kick out the small business person and the small real estate investor out of the market because they have to do a turnover on their IRA. Then they bring in their IRA, take over that market, and then they'll next when they get the Republicans in, then they would change the law back, because the other thing that was most important is once they were in their cash position, they would pretty much cancel out the 2012 Jobs Act, which allowed people more market participation in investing, basically forcing more people to just absolutely work and never actually build wealth. That leads to a collapse of a society. And so low child care costs. That's a risk as a business. Yet you get lower productivity out of your people if they're worried about their kids. Education. Businesses need educated workers. I don't get where these prescription drug costs. This is where Miss Cinema is being bought out by big pharma. We develop the drugs. Our universities develop the drugs, or our land grant universities develop the drugs. And then these large corporations are taking money and then just taking the intellectual property and making boatloads of money off of something that they didn't create. And if they did create a little bit, they're still just reaming the average American public and then kind of being nice to the rest of the world. It's BS. It needs to stop. Our healthcare, everything, all these things help. Now, help. Oh, this was due to because of the 2009. They weren't sure about the low inventory with new people, with a lot of Gen Zs coming on. The tax cuts, creating job, workforce training, the things we need more than anything, right? And now we're going to talk about climate change. The other part about the climate change. Okay, they don't want climate change. I mean, they want climate change. They want to flood the country. They don't care. They do these something. That's the only thing that can be said about it. Because even if you're giving them money or giving them tax breaks, they're still saying nope, 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 nope. We're going to switch, and they can either get on the bus or not. And we might miss the bus, and then these kids can blame their grandparents for the mess they left them. Because it's hilarious. Make America great again. You mean go back to the 1950s? You put together the systems that kept workers, and yeah, you should be able to be rich and grow your wealth and all those things. And but uh, a minimum tax. There's so many things that we need to do to rebuild the country, and all that's being done is Trump is ripping everybody off. He's ripped everybody off for $48 trillion over the last 2 years, probably now to 10 or 12 trillion. We can't reinvest 2 trillion back into our workers because they're too busy worried about how much money they can steal and then ship those jobs overseas and then blame it on them on the black folks who are only 12% of the frickin' population. The black and brown folks, mostly aiming on the black folks, African American, or anyone who's melanated, Hispanic, anybody they can find something to say, they can dump their internal negativity on you. You know, so that's Joe Manchin, and he can be upset with me or whatever. I assume he's a very great, genteel individual. But don't bullshit me. If you come into the table, shake hands, eyeball to eyeball, but you bullshitted me, buddy. You had no wants to freaking get this through. It was all to say, oh, see, look, he's so angry. No, you're angry and you're being a horrible human being and you're screwing over your people. I'm trying to help your people because it's just in my selfish best interest. A country of poor people shoot each other. So, so second thing is, which is the most important thing right now for me, is okay. Still got to get voting rights, and this is the situation that I'm right now is got me livid. All right, they did I guess they got a hold of him and tried to the what is it whatever got a hold of him let me put it this way. Pardon me. Let me rebreathe, catch my breath. This all started was because there's well, secondly of I was already in the middle of dealing with a cartel member who decided they're going to threaten me and my family. Then they were trying to get this person's brand. So, second thing happened is Kathleen Kennedy said something, and I was just being a fan, going, "Lady, that's not cool. You're screwing over this other brother, and you're dumping, you're trying to make it look like it was him when it was all Kathleen Kennedy." I just couldn't. I just had to say what I had to say. So of course, me, then they look at that. It's like, how can I help America get help the president in my own little way? I guess as an investigative journalist or whatever. Do this, back the president, so that way he could get this situation. We, I, you know, it's so much more. So it would give Bob Chapek a better leg in building the company, or basically it's just an exercise in many ways, some ways, not for me, but it wasn't an exercise for most, not for me. But either way, what she did, and yes, I can find this. First, she gets in my computers. She hires somebody for military to get in my computers. My stuff is always constantly being. I'm basically. I don't know if there's an actual bug that's not my phone, but I know there's one that's probably my phone because I've actually caught certain things going on from both my phone and my computers and everything else. I just most people cannot really under or fathom my abilities, and when they do, they freak out. So I keep them to myself. But so so I'm basically what's going on is so Kathleen Kennedy connects to the Admiral McChrystal. McChrystal is connected is has persons in every time I do something or do it online and I have maybe have a connection or something. They Crystal has somebody who's they've connected into to undercut. One of the ones is in Trade Pro. I had a one of the let's say one of the things I watch for market news. One of the guys that works, I caught him basically being a jerk, and I called him out on it. So that's one of Admiral's persons. But what happened is the owner, once this started, he raised all his prices, and the jerk made it look like, well, it's just, we're going to use them to make some money, blah blah blah. No, what it really was to stop anybody from actually learning how to do, basically going against what the owner's original intent was with his business. And he replaced it with greed, and now he's kind of stuck because he can't lower the prices back down. And there's nothing wrong, it's really good quality stuff. They have no qualms with the quality. It is the why, and since the why, which is the spirit of something, the negativity of the beginning of that spirit will actually flow through the rest of his business unless he kiboshes that dude. But he won't. So therefore, I'm going to keep a Heisman. That's how people who are bigoted, and I remember I stated there's a difference between a bigot and a racist. A bigot is an externalizer who needs other people to be self for their acknowledgement of self. And usually, what makes it a bigot is it has to be, no matter what happens, they can never receive respect or respect the other person as within themselves. They might say the words, but as within themselves, they will never do so because they need that other person, because they externalize themselves as opposed to understanding who they are inside internally. So, but the thing is, I could see all of these things going on, and I've watched them over the last several months. You've threatened my life. She has threatened my family, because that little thing with the phone call, I'm getting my family, and oh yeah, that was a threat. That was what's called a veiled threat. And meanwhile, they're protecting Ty Briscoe, who's connected to all the cartels and gangs, and who did imply and state that went to jail for shooting somebody when they were 19 in cold blood. And then also, when I say threaten me, they had somebody come up to me and he was like, yeah, make it quite clear you're going to try to kill me. Okay, didn't expect that. He didn't expect my reaction to be my reaction. So what does this all do? And the thing is, when I'm going through all of these things, I'm sitting there, okay, we had the agenda. All we had to do is get voting rights through. I'm like thinking, why can't we, reaching out to African America, we get voting rights through, dude. Everything else falls into play. Why wasn't Black Lives Matter out there? What I noticed is after Biden said, I'm really losing my patience, the part that dropped, the people, the psychology, the meme set, which I can go into a whole thing about memes, what it really is, reach to Dr. Blackmore. These that dropped 20%, and as I watched the mind of the vibration or the emote, I went, okay, I know who exactly this is. And then it came to my conclusion, okay, that explains why Black Lives Matter never showed up. When we needed Black Lives Matter over the summer to protest, to put pressure, to get what you said what you want, crickets. And European America, the bigots of European America were expecting that. Black folks never have any backbone when it's necessary from their perspective. If black folks had shown up over the summer in mass like they did the year before, right now we would have everything you need. It would have been 5 trillion, 6 trillion, like voting rights, and we'd be moving on to a new Camelot. You had an opportunity and you didn't take it. And I sat there and I was like, who was Black Lives Matter connection to politics? It was the vice president. Who in the vice president's office was their connection? Or who would stymie or control it? The chief of staff, who fit the rhythms of that particular movement. And see, the thing is, what the vice president does not realize is, and I've said some really cool things, is that type of person, that type of abuse gets into your entire, not just your psychological, your mind, but into your entire nervous system. And if, unless you've gone through it, you won't know it until you pull from it. You, her fear is she loses her, been with this person all these years. Yes, you're going to have a psychic split. Yes, vice president, you're going to go crazy. But if you keep this person, I, she can't be trusted because she doesn't work for you. She works for herself, and her connections are to the Crystal, who wants to be president, so he's undercutting you, being backed up by Catherine Kennedy, and then you're protecting these drug dealers. Oh yeah, by the way, Beto, you know, that's more his cohort. What you do not understand, it is blood in, blood out. Actually, you should understand that, Madam Vice President. Blood in, blood out. They have to kill that guy. They're going to kill that guy, and they're going to wait, but they're eventually going to kill him or have him so minimized. But I'm pretty sure it's kill him. Give him a just like Putin. You get something you can't refuse. Remember, the Kennedys came from the mob. And it also I can't say there's parts of my family that were not you know, but she's still within that mindset. She was willing to cut off her face to spite, cut off her nose to spite her face, cut off her face to spite her nose, probably that too. So what's going on is this guy's down there basically he's basically a hostage in Mexico. Now I've said that, and I pretty much, it was hilarious because I knew my phone was on, so they probably were listening, and then they probably got something down to him, say, hey, look, you can come back now. No, he will not be safe because you're protecting them, protecting this fucking cartel member. I called the freaking, do the whole thing, follow through with the law enforcement, and it's come to my conclusion. Now I see why they all say fuck the police, because the people that be, screw them. I call the cops wherever I live. I expect the cops to show up. I expect shit to get done. This is what you do. This is how they destroy African American black neighborhoods. All this time, constantly I put something out, and they were trying to always say, so the masculinity of African America is all they are criminals. So I assume you're going to find some way to have something to set me up, or to find some way to call me a criminal, or I might have said something or whatever, or you're going to then forward whatever your power play is going to be. You have to try to get me to be a criminal, so that way I lose my voting rights. That's her whole play. As I've watched it and I let them manipulate me to see what they were going to do, and see their game. They're just shitty people. And you say, and as a statesman, I should say, well, they have their moments. I'm not being a statesman right now. I haven't tried to be a statesman. I have no reason to be a statesman. Well, yeah, I do. But this is ridiculous what's going on. They're cutting off their nose to spite their face. Okay, for instance, all Biden had to do was a fairness doctrine, a simple fairness doctrine. If you speak to a member of Congress, or you speak, then if you speak to one party of Congress, you have to speak to the other party, opposing party of Congress. Something simple that the average person could understand and will think makes sense. Can't fucking do it. This is what drives people nuts with the Democrats. And then you have at least the Republicans are giving their constituents a whole bunch of angry emotions to feed off of. Democrats, it's always about, you've been played. Oh, okay, I guess we'll take this little bit. Okay. Here's a crumb I'll accept. That's not the way it's supposed to be. We're a third world country, and we might become a fascist country within the next 3 to 4 years. And this is not a hyperbole and a lie. African America, you needed to stand up and you didn't. All because this chick, super ego, so I was being undercut by Catherine Kennedy, undercut by McChrystal, undercut by the by their own inter-racism of African Americans, black African Americans. If, if you don't get voting rights and if you don't hold Trump to an account, this country's over. And that might sound, oh, the sky is falling. I am not a sky is falling kind of person. I don't. I you right now, if you want to understand China, you look at China and go, okay, there's the 7 things that a diplomat or courtier has to know. Understand that as a way of Chinese, and you will start to understand Xi Jinping a lot better because you understand that. You look at how the first emperor who used it, then the second emperor, and then the emperor the last emperor, and then how Mao used those 7 precepts, and then now how Xi is doing it. We have given away all of our technology to China, and they're ready to take over. Right now they're beating their chest. The 100 years of Taiwan. They take over Taiwan, it'll be a signal to the world and hold Taiwan. America can't protect you. You're going to do what we tell you to do, because as by the actions that they have done with Australia, and you need to, and see, look. They're even more corrupt than we are. The people wanted something, and the corruption destroyed it. And things that actually make people's lives better. The baby boomers do not want to. They're piling all this cash, and they said it again. Well, you're going to get it all when we die. Nobody wants something just handed to them. And even if they did, if you haven't worked for it, it's just always just spent and spoiled. That would rot the republic from the inside. Baby boomers have destroyed everything that their parents created, and it's sad. Once again, the only person who can go back and forth is the vice president. And right now, the vice president has a chief of staff, and if you that is not well trusted. And if you don't believe me, ask Madam Vice President. I suggest you take. I thought about saying this a while ago. Suggest you take the Jane Tacky. I don't not the press secretary out to lunch and actually have a conversation, woman to woman. And she probably won't say anything, but it might. But you might just get enough information to figure it out. Your time, Madam Vice President, is short. You need to do what is necessary. You need to stop all these senators from running over to the White House because it needs to be okay. The senator talks to the vice president talks to the president. That's what needs to happen. Them just ending around you means you have no power. You are the emissary to the of the people to the president, and from the president to the people. Kathleen Kennedy has hidden behind. And when I said about the families, that is true. Because the thing is, you forgot Prince Harry lives in America now. Do you think the Queen of England wants her grandson to live in a place that would put her great grandson's life in danger? See, the thing is, Mitt Romney, even if at the taper ends and they go into a cash position, they could have still bought treasury bonds. We can still sell treasury bonds for the 6 trillion and micros and all that. That's still what I'm still working on as far as making sure that it works in what I want it to work. And then, because just by selling treasuries, we wouldn't even have to raise taxes, because they're going to want to get their money out, and they're going to have to end up buying treasuries to maintain the taxes, to maintain the tax-free situation. Because once it's in a bond or a bill, it could be then manipulated to create other capital. One of the reasons the financial collapse happened is because everything was 20 to 1 and greater, and that's something I'll explain. It's harder to explain in less complex terms, but I'll explain it in another video. Well, easiest way is saying I took this thing, say this is $1 billion, and I turned it into about $100 billion off of using different instruments. Basically, that's what happened. So we can do that and turn it around and use it for ourselves and actually flow capital back into the coffers, and also set it up in a way where there's still wealth preservation, while at the same time we're bringing a lot of capital into for these programs that actually make capitalism better, and brings back to that point of Thomas Jefferson, where each person has their own small farm, which is why which is basically, it's great, amazing. All these Gen Zers or youngers, they want to be their own entrepreneur. Yeah, it's a lot harder, but you still got to go out and work. Go get the technical skills. They can get the education, the technical skills, then get out onto the road, and then get out into the business. So you have your work, and then you have your side hustle, and then that side hustle, you grow that, and that's how you build it, because you learn while you're in the business. Some business persons might say, well, I don't want them to do that. But the thing is, those businesses are not that loyal to their employees. So why would you be upset that their employees is making sure that their families are fed because you're not doing it? They're a cog. Let's get real. They're a cog, and a lot of these systems are designed to make sure they have no time to do anything else except take whatever scraps you give them, and that makes for a crappier world. So we got voting rights, private, you know, partial owners, capital, industry. Because if you own partial ownership of these Fortune 500 companies, you can gather together as like an MMORPG, and you can now affect these boards. If you having a problem with ExxonMobil, well, it's the board that says these are the type of people we want. These are the things that we want your investments in. If the boards are not on board, so to speak, then they're just going to keep just extracting and destroying the planet. You can extract without destroying the planet. You can do these things and still make these investments. But if the board and the shareholders do not say they want these things, then the only person then that's not going to happen. But the only way for it to happen is partial ownership rights, buying partial stocks, by understanding how the markets work, even a little bit. 2, the filibuster. Get it back away from this thing that Mitch McConnell uses to say I don't have to talk to essentially, Democrat is euphemism for niggers from a Republican perspective. It's the Democrats. Oh, it's those brown people, those yellow people, those green people, those other people. It's the others. So I guess Negroes would be in that other. So when they have an euphemism, it's other. And so when Connell's saying that it's I don't have to talk to you, you're not mine, he's basically being at that point. And I could tell you, it must have been. You could see in these pictures the way that they treated Obama during, and while Biden was vice president, was heartbreaking for him, because he never understood the toxicity of such bigotry until he saw it firsthand. Joe Manchin is willing to screw over his own people. His daughter walks away with 30 something million dollars. We still haven't gotten anything from McConnell as far as what did we get out of the fact of his wife rooting around in our transportation systems, besides what she finagled for the roads. Did we get better contracts for China? Did we get better shipping fees? Did we open up new trade? What did we get out of her being in our transportation systems? And you notice he's made all this noise to make sure nobody understands. Here's that question again. So back to the thing that matters the most right now. The Build Back Better plan. Things we need more than anything, voting rights. And Black Lives Matter apparently doesn't matter. Because when it was time to step up, you weren't there. And when the president says, I'm really tired, then you flipped out like a child. But now as I look over it, it is because you thought the person who was supposed to be your connection was being manipulated. And the vice president is acting like a codependent and won't get rid of her. Or at least remove all the people that she's hired and hire new people designed around around the vice president's personality, not your chief of staff's personality. Because, Madam Vice President, you need to hurry up and get connected in to the system. You need to take more off of the president's plate. And so he can look at you as somebody he truly trusts with the bigger picture. But as long as your chief of staff is in, that's not going to happen. She might be brilliant, but she's not loyal. Not loyal enough. She believes she is above you and that she controls you, and you're just something that she uses for her own personal power. And if you sit back and listen to her very carefully, you will hear it. But most people won't, because that means to hear others, you have to listen in a recursive fashion, a reciprocating fashion. And it's not saying you don't, because you're actually, qualifications, you're brilliant. I'm not saying anything like that. This is a different level of mind, and it can only be experienced. So Manchin might be upset, but he is upset so he can hide the fact that he's really not for his people. He's really not for the workers. Because how would you do? And then cinema is being played by the by the drug companies, and so she's screwing over her people. If there's one thing I gotta give, McConnell's, definitely has caucus discipline. These two senators tanked Joe Biden. Because they looked out more for their donors than their people. And I actually think Joe, outside of me finally getting annoyed with him and being calling him a bigot, I think in general, if my skin wasn't brown, we'd actually probably get along. But now we won't. But I'm not worried about that anymore. I'll get back to the long-term levers, how to build back what the last dude destroyed. I have a true belief in America, but I don't believe America believes in itself anymore. I think Trump has dumped so much of his toxic energy, his negativity. I don't know. I don't know. I have hope, but I don't know. But I do know this. Ms. Kennedy, you threatened my family. I will legally, because you're going to say physically, I will legally find a way to get you back. Make no mistake to that. You've been hiding behind your Secret Service protection and causing hell for people for decades. That needs to end.